And then also tomorrow morning as well, I may not actually. I don't want to take a chance here because I'm supposed to be taking this medication. It's like 4 times a day or something. So I'm going to kindly ask the 2 course reps to liaise with the rest of the class to see if we can push our morning class tomorrow to somewhere in the afternoon. Oh my goodness. So I normally have class at 17 hours. So an option is for us to meet at 18. But also I can reschedule my meetings with research students here. So I can make myself available as well between 14 hours and 16. Or if you're comfortable, actually, what we can do, it'll be nice. We can have a 7 hours virtual class or something. That'll be a new one. It'll be like an experiment or something. So I'm going to ask the 2 course reps to liaise with the rest of you or something. If we can do it at 7, it will make my life a lot easier because I won't have to reschedule a number of these events, if you will. So that's I guess explanation for why we're having a virtual class right now. But also, I wanted to take this opportunity as well to make an announcement. I think this is obviously it's common knowledge now because the course reps have probably shared this information. In fact, they had prompted me to find out about the extension of the deadlines for the 2 active assessments. The assessments, the 2 assessments have been, the deadlines have been extended. So both of these assessments are due next week on Monday. So you have exactly seven days to work on both assignment number 6 and assignment number 7, which I guess is a good thing because we are yet to finalize our discussion of project management. Then also, I think it should give the tutor and yourselves a bit of time to refine the things that are supposed to go in the proposal document itself. Yeah, so that's that. I don't know if there are any questions or thoughts about this, especially the assignment, perhaps. Yes, is that a question? Please proceed. I don't know if that's a question or something. I can't see if there's a question, if that's a hand up or something. But if it's a hand up, please, if you can unmute your microphone and proceed, Mr. Abel. I see you there. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I have a question on the type of research what we're supposed to do, whether to choose whether it's going to be qualitative, mixed method, or quantitative. So my concern is with you, we've only done the
I'm not sure if he says me, but he's not audible anymore.
method, sir.
Oh yeah, so I mean, I got your question here. We haven't yet discussed in depth details to do with like specifics of what you do in a quantitative study, qualitative study, or mixed methods, kind of approach. But what we've done is when we're discussing, I want to draw attention here to the things that we discussed, right? When we were discussing, lecture series number, I want to argue that it was lecture series number, we've done quite a bit here. Lecture series number, I don't know if it's number 4 here, but probably not. It's ethics, no. So what I'm doing, if I will go to this folder and go to the list folder here, right? Go to slides and go to lecture series number. I want to argue here that it was probably lecture series number 2 or something, if not 3. Right? If you remember this discussion here, under introduction to research, right? we gave you enough details. This is the first part, right? Enough details where we're talking about types of research or something. I don't know if you remember this. It was March, right? It's like 4 months ago when we discussed these things here. If you go through lecture series number 2, you begin to realize that you have more than enough information to enable you to put together a proposal document. More importantly, actually, the details that we covered in lecture series number 3, again, this was in March, right? When we started this discussion, we covered, right, the broad spectrum of what you put in or what you include in a methodology section or a methodology chapter. If you remember, right? We spoke about the structure of research and all those different things. I don't know if you remember this when we're going through these phases here. So with this information, now a proposal is not supposed to have, at this stage, at least for the purposes of LIS 2034, it's not supposed to have like the gory details of specifics, right? Or no, we are going to conduct statistical ANOVA test here, or student t-test, and things like we're going to validate using God knows what sort of technique, right? We're going to check if the stuff is normally distributed. No, right? You were equipped with the basic information of what is required in a research methodology. Do you understand this? So we expect you to just mention details like, well, we're going to conduct a quantitative study because we're going to collect data using questionnaires, right? So the approach we're going to take is a quantitative approach or something, or it's a mixed methods approach because of ABCD, and we're going to collect data from these people or something. That's it. Just enough, not the actual details. The actual details are going to come out in the report, and the next phase where we expect you to present the research design of your study before you start data collection. Does that answer your question? Is there any other questions? Okay. All right. If there are no questions, that's fine. We can proceed with our lecture then. I imagine, and I keep, this thing starts automatically. This is good. I thought I'd forgotten. I don't know if I'm the one who started this here. I'm forgetting these days. I should start writing things down, literally sticky notes, right? Do this before class, and I don't know what's happening here with me. It's scary, right? Could be dementia or something like that. But, ladies and gentlemen, we started our discussion of project management here, right? And, when we started our discussion here, we unpacked this notion of project, right? The fact that a project comprises of certain key elements, right? And then we realized that for us to come up with a plan, a detailed plan, if you remember this diagram here, I don't know, this diagram here, for us to come up with a detailed plan, in other words, for us to define this schedule, one of the things we have to do is we have to decompose our project, right? And how do we decompose our project? Well, we use software like Open Project, LibreOffice or something. But more importantly, there are specific artifacts that we use as a basis to come up with these schedules. One of the very first artifacts that you're required to come up with is what we introduce as a work breakdown structure. And we realize that as input to our work breakdown structure, we must make sure that our tasks and activities are organized as follows, right? We are clearly identifying all the constituent tasks and activities associated with the project, the corresponding duration, and more importantly, the dependencies that exist. So in essence, we're just indicating whether a particular task is dependent on another task. Like I want to draw attention to task number 3 here. Under the dependence column here, you notice that we have a T1 here. What this means is that T3 is dependent on T1. In other words, we cannot work on T3 before we work on T1. That is essentially what we mean by dependencies. T5 is dependent on T2 and T4. What that means is that we cannot start working on T5 up until we finish both T2 and T4. And what we said actually, right, was that we want to be very careful when we're decomposing our projects. Careful because we want to make sure that we decouple these tasks, right? We come up with these, we design these tasks in such a way that there is very little dependency that exists, so that we're able to carry out tasks in parallel or at the same time, subsequently reducing the amount of time it's going to take for us to complete the project itself. So we realize that using this as input, we can come up with a so-called work breakdown structure, WBS. And your WBS in essence has, if we look at the visual representation of WBS here, is organized as a tree-like structure, right? It's a hierarchical structure like what you're seeing on the diagram. And what we see here is there are levels, right, to this hierarchy. I mean, that's why it's called a hierarchical structure, right? There's a hierarchy, so there are levels. In this particular case, we have level 1, level 2, and then there's level 3 here, I guess. What's important about the levels is, by convention, using this method, you start numbering this tree structure at level 2. So the project name is not numbered. So the enumeration starts at level 2, from left to right. So in other words, air vehicle will be 1, SE program management will be 2, system T and E will be 3, training will be 4. What follows in the next level, which is level 3 here, we'll use an enumeration that is based on the previous level. So in other words, airframe here will be 1.1. Propulsion will be 1.2. If that makes sense. And ultimately, what you're working towards is something like this, right? So we'll come up with a very simple example, something that we can all relate to. I should have changed this to LIS 2034, but the idea is the same. So we have this course at UNZA, a third-year course, and we have assessments, right? But we see that these assessments are categorized in a certain way. In this particular course, you have final exam, you have a group-based project, you have class theory tests. And the class theory test, we have test 1 and test 2. So what we're saying is we can view this ICT 3020 assessments as the project name. This is level 1. We don't start numbering here. We start at level 2. So class theory test would be 1. Group project would be 2. Class theory test number 1 will be 1.1 because we're continuing off enumeration from 1. Class theory test 2 will be 1.2 because it follows 1.1. Okay? And what we said was that using this as input, we can actually come up with a detailed schedule, right? A so-called Gantt chart. Because this thing on its own, if you look at this thing here, it's a bit tricky here. It's a bit tricky here for you to kind of like come up with a detailed schedule, is it? This is not a schedule here. It's just like some dependency tree that showcases deliverables and perhaps milestones or something. What you need here is to kind of figure out exactly when the start date is, and then using the project durations here, you can then build something, that artifact on your XY plane that showcases the tasks in your Y-axis and the time on the X-axis here, right? A nice visualization. So that visualization is what we are calling a timeline. And specifically, we're going to focus our attention with a Gantt chart. A Gantt chart, right? So this slide here, the picture at the bottom, the visualization on the bottom is just showcasing an example of a Gantt chart where we are saying, and I know because of brevity here, ideally somewhere to the far left here, we're supposed to have a list of tasks here. And then the time is typically indicated horizontally at the top, right? Not at the bottom, but at the top. If you notice here, this is April, May, June, July. And though we're organizing this simplistic example here is in such a way that the smallest unit of time we're working with is a week. So this one here means week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Each month has 4 weeks, right? Week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. And then we start slotting in the activities. So your Gantt chart essentially represents activity timelines. So the times or timelines associated with each individual activity associated with a project. And because of that, right, this artifact is used to visualize an entire project. In most, I'm saying, ideally, it should also be used to track the progress. In other words, to monitor the progress of the project. But because people rarely do this, it's an academic exercise for people, right? Or you're trying to fulfill a requirement. It's like your client, your customer, right? Ministry of Education has reached out to you. We want to conduct a study in all schools in Zambia. Please prepare a project charter or a project proposal. I mean, because you know that Ministry of Education is not going to tolerate any nonsense like that. If you prepare a proposal that doesn't have a timeline, you are forced to create that timeline. But during the project, you rarely refer to that timeline, which is quite sad, really. Because a timeline fundamentally is meant to enable you track progress. In instances where things are off, like we said in that workflow, we adjust. And so the timeline changes, right? It's supposed to be dynamic. You use it to reallocate resources, to make adjustments, and all those things. Okay. And I thought I would, I don't know if this would be a good time here, but I'll showcase examples afterwards, I guess, just to try and put things into perspective, right? So your Gantt chart, right? Again, pay particular attention to the image to the right. Your Gantt chart will obviously comprise of the tasks that you decompose using a work breakdown structure, the start dates for each and every task, the finish dates for each and every task, and the durations for each and every task. Now, I've been singing this song for quite some time now. You see, we are being we're being repetitive here. If whenever you're working with time, ladies and gentlemen, if you have the start date and the end date, you can derive the duration, because the duration is going to be end date minus start date. And I know what you're thinking here. Well, but Lighton, wait a minute. What about holidays and stuff? Yes, we know, right? But you get the point here. Just like if you have the start date and the duration, you can derive the end date. In other words, what I'm trying to say here is you only need two of these things here: start date and end date, or if you wish, start date and duration. You can derive these other things, right? Just wanted to put it out there. But in principle, we are saying the task must have these things. And also remember here that this duration is coming from where? From here. For each task, you sit down and you figure out, right? You discuss as a project team. How many days do you think it will take us to prepare the presentation slides? And you must seriously discuss these things, right, in your respective teams. I think 2 days. And then a voice of reason will just pop up, say, I don't think 3 days will work here, right? We first of all need to do a X number of rehearsals, maybe 3 rehearsals, to figure out the appropriate order in our presentation, because we did really, really bad in the presentations tied to the literature review synthesis. So to improve on that, we need to change the order. We need to experiment with different orders. Okay, fine. We also need to prepare the slide deck itself. We haven't even started, we haven't even identified the piece of software we're going to use. Although the lecturer has said we use Google Slides, maybe we need to teach ourselves how to use Google Slides or something like that, right? And then you realize, oh, the duration then is going to be maybe 5 days. It's realistic, not 2 or 3, right? And that's assuming that we're going to be dedicating at least 3 hours together every day, right? In those 5 days or something. So this is your input here, okay? So you have your task, your start date, You finished it with duration, and then I've deliberately decided to decouple. I deliberately decide to separate these normal tasks. I'm going to call them normal tasks here, from milestones and deliverables. But what we know is that a milestone and a deliverable is nothing more than a special type of task, if you remember, which has a duration of 0. In other words, the start date is equal to the end date. Do you understand this? It has a duration of 0. Okay. And then the other elements that you include in your Gantt chart or calendar-based schedule is your so-called dependencies. You've got to represent them somewhere. Remember, this is a visual representation. It's a chart, right? So you're visualizing these things. And then finally, you have your critical path. Now, if you look at this diagram here, these diamonds, the things in black, are either milestones or deliverables. Okay? It's a diamond, putatively. By convention, I guess. And then I want to come back to, I see there's a comment in the chat here. I'll come back to you there. These rectangular shapes that are in blue here are the tasks. Okay? And unfortunately here we're not visualizing what do you call this? The dependencies, right? But the dependencies are showcased them just now. The dependencies are visualized using directed arrows. Okay? It turns out that when you use a piece of software like Microsoft Project or Project Libre, the critical path is going to be automatically indicated on your behalf. Observe. Pull up an example I like using here, Zema, right? Grep Ray or something. Grep. What is that? Inception. And then grep PDF. If you look at the Inception report that we produced for Zema, right? Towards the end in the annex section we have, but where is it now? What? I thought it was here somewhere. There we go. Somewhere towards the end here we have our timeline, right? Classic example. Now, weirdly enough, here our critical path here, the thing that is in red here, is it orange or red? I don't know if you're colorblind, is what we're calling a critical path. And the piece of software we're using was able to automatically figure out what the critical path is, right? So what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through these visualizations as they relate to a tool like Project Libre, so that you understand exactly how what sort of notation to use here, right? So this is a classic example of this is a real world project which was undertaken over a prolonged period of time here. This was from 2021. We're supposed to finalize in 2022, but we're only finalizing in 2023 because of the pandemic. We're doing this during the pandemic. I don't know how much of this you guys remember here, right? Each task has an associated duration. There's also a start date and an end date or something. What else? Well, I can show you another example of a long-term project, right? And goodness, this is a long-term project. We've been working on this since the entire project. I mean, we have sub-projects, but we started working on this in 2021, and it's still ongoing. But because we have sub-projects, we have timelines associated with these different sub-projects. Okay, so for instance, we have and I'm going to open up the the project, one of the longest projects we've had here. We got some funding from Google Research, to work on on this particular project here that is called Google Award for Inclusion thing here. Right? So if I go in here and I go to reports, somewhere in our Inception report is some pretty interesting timeline here, right? And because of the fact that we're working with other people that are not familiar with these fancy tools that I normally would use myself, if I'm preparing a project proposal, we had to use Excel, right? So if I scroll down towards this, this document is 100 and something pages long here, right? This is 100 and I don't know, 122 pages according to this Google slide. You see this? What I'm showcasing here from in Appendix B2. I don't know how much of this you guys can see here, but in Appendix B2 here, this is a timeline. If you notice, we started quarter 1, 2023, all the way up to quarter 1, 2024, and we had to extend this. All right, we had to extend this. So what you are looking at here is a timeline for the entire project, right? These rectangular shapes are in black here. These are the tasks, right? So for each of these individual tasks here, we're just essentially indicating the duration, when it's going to start. If you look at the visualization, it gives you an idea of when it's going to start, right? Clearly, it's like when it's going to start and when it's going to end. Like in this project scoping here, was between January and February, somewhere there. Yeah. If I start scrolling down here, so it's the detailed stuff we did here, right? And this is a classic research project here. It's different from this Zema project we worked on because it was software development. The focus here was on developing software, but it's a project. Doesn't matter whether developing software, you're building a road, it's still a project, right? But we know we're interested in research, right? This is a research project here. If you look at the key deliverables here, experiments, recruiting students, and all those different things here. So this is a classic example of your timeline, right? Detailed timeline here. What else? I also like, not like, but open project. I don't know if I'll be able to find what I'm looking for. I always have it somewhere. I shared this with Miss Dokoi, my former master's student here. She graduated also. But what I'm going to show you here is a timeline that was created using what do you call this? Open project. If you remember when I was showcasing the different tools that you guys can use to create this timeline, I said what? Well, you can use a spreadsheet application like Google Sheets. Boom. You can use Trello. You can use Jira or Jira, depending on where you're coming from, right? You can use Open Project, right? You can use Microsoft Project. You can use Project Libre, Lucy Charts, right? A whole slew of tools that you can use here. Pick and choose. But what I'm going to show you is what was created using Open Project. So when I was conducting my doctoral studies, right, if you notice, you may not see this here, but this project timeline showcases, this is a timeline of activities for my doctoral thesis, right? I started my PhD, technically speaking, like late 2013, somewhere around September, October is when I started working on it, but I was registering in 2014. And I was working here, working, right? 2013 all the way up to 2018 when I was graduating. So if you look at the, that's like 5 years, right? If you look at the activities that you have here, right? Where my supervisor used to refer to me by my last name here, Piri here, right? Is familiar with my last name. So if you look at the activities here, right? They span multiple years. And really the idea is the same. It doesn't matter what tool you're using. What you notice is that there are common traits, is it? Your Gantt chart has, to the far left, a series of activities, right? Boom. Activities. Yeah, there are more activities, right? Activities. Planning is important if you want to succeed in life, right? I plan myself. You have a series of activities. And then if you look at the content pane here, in as much as the coloring may be somewhat different from the tool that was used when we were creating the Zema timeline, the idea is the same, right? Milestones are still represented using what? A diamond, right? Milestones are represented using what? A diamond. Yeah, sure, it's pink or red. Don't know. I guess this is red or something. It's pink or red. And then in here, it's the diamond, symbol here is black. But the idea is the same, right? The notation is the same. And then on the top there, you have the period. Now, here's the thing about the period, right? Depending on the duration of the project, Like in this particular case, I'm showcasing to you that my doctoral thesis had a duration spanning 5 years. So if I say it's 5 years, right? This thing it wasn't going to be very legible if I was to visualize it using a smallest unit of time equivalent to a 1 week or something, or a quarter or something, 1 week. Yeah. But so what did I do? I'm representing the timeline in months, right? In your case, because you guys are working with a slightly shorter timeline, it's like a couple of months. What you want to do here is scale it down to weeks. Week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, something. And on top you have months. You understand this? If that makes sense. Don't know. I thought I'd mention this, right? The idea is the same. What you notice once we start going through this is the idea is the same. But so the question we want to answer here is, how do we assemble an artifact like that? Huh? Well, we are using as input this still, and using this as input, we assemble something that looks like this. In terms of the notation, what we see here is that the tasks, right, which represent your core elements of your Gantt chart, would typically be presented on the left side of the Gantt chart itself. Now, depending on where this Gantt chart is going, like if it's going to be integrated into a very, very important report, like if it's an academic exercise like ours, you would make sure that your activities are indicated with their corresponding start dates, finish dates, and durations, including their predecessors or dependencies. So what you're seeing here, right, is they're saying in this visualization, for each and every task, we indicate the ID, right? In other words, a word or alphanumeric characters that are used to uniquely identify the task, or in this particular case, numeric character, right? 1 through 10 or something. Then we have this task names, right? Test, class theory test 1, class theory test 2, group project, planning phase, planning proposal document, right? Start date, right? Start date when the task is going to be initiated. Finish date. The finish date is the end date. You understand this? The finish date is like the end date. And then we have the predecessors, which are the dependencies that exist. Okay. So pretty straightforward here. And what you notice when you're using something like Project Libre is that the duration, for instance, will be automatically derived on your behalf, right? Here's the thing. I'm going to showcase something to you here. If I open up Project Libre, for instance, and I say, well, I want to create an example, some timeline associated with LIS 2034, right? Research in information science or something like that. Who is the project manager? Yours truly, right? When is the start date? When are we going to start this project? I was just going to assume we started this on the 1st or something of July, right? You add a few notes. This is just for tooling purposes, right? And then once we create this, every time I'm adding an activity, I don't know what I'm going to do here. Okay, I'm going to add maybe one of the activities is lectures, right? Come on now. This is the thing here. We shouldn't have started on the 1st. What are we doing here? Okay, it's okay. No, though. It's not okay. We should have started this. When did let's visualize this. Let's do this systematically, right? And maybe I can change the example this time around. I'm going to open up this, so that we remind ourselves. They told us, right? Apparently, they told us that classes were supposed to start on the 24th of February, and they're ending on the 12th of September. So what are we going to do here? We're going to say our project starts on the. You understand what I'm saying here? We're trying to mimic what is happening here. Classes are supposed to start on the 24th. So 24th of February is when this project was supposed to start. 24th, which is a Monday. Thank you. Right? And then I'll close this. And then I'll say lectures, right? We have lecture 1. When did lecture 1 start, right? You understand what I'm saying here? Well, we don't know later. Lecture 1 started, we started classes on the 24th itself. So we started on the 24th, and then lecture 2, come on now. Lecture 2 started on the, if you remember this, on the 3rd, right? So 24th to the 3rd, 24th to the 3rd of July or something is okay. So I'll come here and I'll say lecture 1. What is the way you assemble this, right? It's like when first lectures is a summary task. We're also going to have assessments here. Maybe we're going to have tutorials or something somewhere here. But lecture 1, lectures is a summary task. And because it's a summary task, this thing here called lecture 1 here is supposed to be supposed to indent it somehow. I don't know why I can't. I'm failing to indent this here. But okay, I'm gonna first of all. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to first of all indicate the details, right? So we're saying this started on the 24th of February, and then the last day is what? It can't be 3rd of March here, but it's in March somewhere. So we normally have classes on Monday through Wednesday. So this ended on the 26th of February, right? From the 24th to the 26th. So in other words, we are saying that this particular activity here, and I don't know why this thing is not, I'm going to save this and pod. And then I'm just going to close this first. I don't know what's happening here. This thing is not working the way it ought to be working. I don't know if I need to update this thing, right? It's irritating. It's irritating. Project Libre. I'm just going to open it again and hope that this time around it will work. I don't know why this thing is not. I'll have to fix this here, but yeah. Yeah, this is horrible stuff, but that's okay. I don't know if I can force this. I don't know if I can force this or something, but I won't be able to force this. I wanted to kind of indicate that I'll have to check this later on, to indicate that lectures is a summary task, which is associated with. I can't even right click. What in God's name is happening with my computer here? I will fix this later on anyway. I don't know. I'll probably have to restart this. But the idea is I wanted to showcase that this thing here is a summary task of essentially it's linked to the lectures summary task, right? It's a subtask. And then something else I was going to do is, because this thing is not working, I can just change. We'll have lecture 2 here, right? And we see that lecture 2 started on a different day, is it? Which is the 3rd of this thing started on the 3rd of March, right? Because it started on the 3rd of March, and then if we open up lecture series number 3, we see that March 17th is when we started. So meaning that this thing started on the, what is this? Area the constraint, that's fine. It started on the 3rd of March, and then it ended on, it can't end on the 17th, is it? It's the day before, which is the 12th. Not a day before, a week before, which is the 12th, like this, right? And then you notice here the visualization is changing, right? Yeah, so we are indicating for each task The key thing here is for each task, we're indicating what? The start date, the finish date. The duration is automatically being determined on our behalf. Okay. What else do we have here? So duration is being derived. That's a content pen. The other thing is the predecessors, the dependencies. What we do know in our case is that we cannot start lecture. We couldn't have started lecture 2 before finalizing lecture 1. So meaning that there was a dependency, right? Lecture 1 had a dependence on lecture 2. And what we do here under predecessors is we would indicate, and this is the thing here, would indicate right here. I would say the predecessor here is lecture series with ID 2 here, is it? If you notice, there's a directed arrow that just popped up. I don't know if you saw this arrow here. A directed arrow where the arrowhead is terminating on the task that has a dependency on where the arrow originated from. That's how you are visualizing the dependency. So I'm indicating the predecessors here. Right? So if I had lecture number 3, I would again indicate that lecture number 3 started on the 17th of March. On the 17th of March, and we kind of like ended, I don't know when we ended, but we can open the subsequent lecture, which is number 4 here, and we see that it started on the 25th. So we started on the 17th. When did we end? We couldn't have ended on the 25th here. So 17th up to the 24th, right? We started classes on the 17th up to the 24th because lecture number 4 started when? It started on the 25th. Do you understand this? Is that logic, really? And so what we're saying here is that lecture 2 has a dependency on lecture 1. Now, this 2 that you're seeing here is not like lecture 2, no. It's the ID associated with lecture 1. If you notice to the far left here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the IDs, the task IDs. So I'm indicating the predecessors for the dependencies for lecture 2, which is lecture 1. Now, here's the thing. If we come to lecture 3 here, we know that lecture 3 has a dependency on lecture 1 and lecture 2. So it's 1, 2, right? We have got to 1, 2, 1, semicolon 2. I don't know why this is, but I'm just going to indicate, sorry, this is lecture 3. It's 2 and 3, rather. So it's 2 and 3. I don't know why this is 2 and 3. I'm just going to indicate 3 here, right? So the directed arrows ideally are what indicate whether there's a dependency or not. Do you understand this? What we are seeing here is each task must have an ID, a name, a start date, finish date, a duration, and must explicitly indicate the dependencies, right? The tasks upon which it's dependent on. Okay? And then if you go to the content pane, right, you begin to notice here that you visualize these tasks in a certain special way. Like summary tasks are, we defined what summary tasks are here. They're like phases, right? Activities of work which cannot be done, right, in isolation. You have to decompose them further. Like, for instance, methodology. You can't say the task is methodology. It doesn't make sense, right? You go to decompose it and say methodology comprises of sampling techniques, identification of sampling techniques, determining sample size, identifying target population, creation of the measurement instrument, like a questionnaire or something. Those are like individual tasks that are linked to the methodology. This helps in structuring your Gantt chart, yeah? So that people are able to logically follow through with what you're doing. And so the way these are visualized in Project Libre is you have this sort of shape here. It's typically in black here. It encapsulates all the tasks that are tied to it. Okay? It's like an umbrella structure, if you will. So it envelopes all the subtasks, milestones, and deliverables, right? And then, if you remember, I mentioned that your milestones and your deliverables are indicated using what? Using a diamond symbol. In Project Libre, its diamond symbol is going to be black. Certain project management tools will have it in a different color, right? Like Open Project, if you notice, that was like red, or is it orange or something? Now, what you notice here, I don't know if you're paying attention, a task with ID 2 here, which is class theory test 1, it has a duration of 0. If it's at a duration of 0, it's either a milestone or a deliverable. Hence, the diamond symbol here. And really, if I come here, right, once we are done with, I have to reinstall this thing. It's not working. I will reinstall it. When we are done with lecture 4 is dependent on lecture 3, which has an idea of 4 here. But maybe I shouldn't include this. I'll delete it like that. But at the end of lecture 3, a milestone could be like a milestone is just you're marking a specific important point in time, right? For me, how I would mark a milestone linked to lecture 3 is I would say completed or lecture 3 sessions completed. Right? So I've completed. It's a milestone. And how do I indicate that it's a milestone? Well, first I have got to indicate when exactly I'm completing this milestone. Well, maybe it's on the 25th itself, right? The following day after the 24th. But what I'll do here is I'll tell Project Libre that the duration here is 0. And the moment I say it's 0, if you notice here, there's a diamond symbol that has been created with a date corresponding here. I want to do this. Previously, it was a rectangular shape. But the moment I change this duration to 0, it becomes a diamond, or it uses a diamond notation, signaling the fact that this is a milestone. Milestones and deliverables are special types of tasks that have a duration of 0. And typically, what most of these tools will do is, in addition to representing them as a diamond symbol, they will include the date. If you notice here, as an annotated text, it's telling you that on the 25th/02, the 25th of February is when you have this milestone. And it's important that you indicate the dates for milestones. That way, because these are like specific points in time, right? That way people will know when exactly that milestone is going to fall in your timeline, right? If you look at this Gantt chart I have from the Zema thing here, all of these key milestones here, inception report completed. And what is this? This is here. Come on. Inception report completed, right? And stuff. These are all milestones, these diamond symbols. They have dates. You may not see this here, but they have dates corresponding to them. Okay? And then what we're saying here is that your dependencies are represented as directed arrows, right? A directed arrow that starts from where the dependency exists and then it terminates on the thing that has a dependency. So in this particular case, what we're saying is that class theory test 2 is dependent on class theory test 1. We cannot write test 2 before we write test 1. And hence we have a directed arrow here. Typically, you don't have dependencies amongst milestones, but it's just an example, right? It's a lot easier for you to understand like that. Dependencies are typically represented using normal tasks, if you will. I guess. I don't know. Okay. So those are your dependencies. These are dependencies are one way, right? It's not like when I say there's a dependency that exists from test 1 and test 2. It's not like we're saying because test 2 is dependent on test 1, then test 1 is also dependent on test 2. No, it's one way, which is why it's a directed arrow, right? We don't have 2 arrowheads. There's one arrowhead here. Yeah, beginning to end, in other words. And then finally, you have your critical path, right? Yeah, a critical path really is something interesting about a critical path. A critical path is supposed to comprise of tasks, is important here, which when delayed will result in the overall project being delayed. You know, when you derive your tasks like these things here, we say task 1 duration is 10, task 2 duration is 15, task 3 15, 10. It's not like we are saying that we must do these things in 10 days or 15 days, right? Is it? These are estimates. But what we do when we create this dependency tree here is we identify tasks which, when we identify that the task has a duration of X, if it's just delayed by 1 day or 2 days, then the entire project is going to be delayed by 1 day or 2 days. Hence, it's like an important task and is associated with a critical path. So everything that lies on the critical path is a task which, when delayed, is going to result in the entire project being delayed. However, if you delay any other task, right, which doesn't lie on the critical path, you can get away scot-free without delaying the project. So your project management tool here is going to visualize this, right? In orange or something like that, you know, we're not, we're not going to waste time here, and well, not really waste time here, but this is not the core of what we're doing. I would have really loved to talk about, I don't know, maybe you can sneak in risk management or something. I would have really loved to talk about some of these things, but we want to focus on the important. This is also important for research, but we want to focus on the other researchy centric things, right? The core of the research, like the methodology and data analysis and stuff, right? And so I think the Gantt chart is going to be sufficient, but I'm just going to have to change the assignment so that you don't even have to do risk management, right? It should be enough here. I would want for us to, maybe I can sneak in, I'll sneak in risk management. I don't know. No, I don't know. I will not provide some exemplar document. I think I've provided some sample examples here, example documents. Yeah, these other things are going to be, I'm going to tell Royce to focus on these things here. I'm going to pause here and find out if, you guys have any specific questions or something. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, can we throw in a bit of risk management? These things are important. Yeah. Yes. I think we will. Tomorrow, I'm gonna modify these things. We're going to talk about risk management, and we shall talk about risk management, the RESI metrics as well. It's important that we learn these things. Okay. Are there any questions about the Gantt chart? Listen.
Yes,
maybe
sir.
tomorrow. Just a minute. Tomorrow, what I'll do is I will also walk you through when we have class. I'll fix my project Libre so that I do a live demo. But in the event that I don't do a live demo, I always do this like almost every year, right? And so why not just refer you to something that I've done? That'll be nice. Project Libre. I've done this in class, and like I'll share this, for instance, with you guys, right? It's an odd thing here. I created this. I think this was like, whoo! You see, time flies here when you're doing important things, I guess, in life. No, I think time flies all the same. This was like 20 years ago, 5 years ago or something. This was May 2020. So I'm going to share this with you. But tomorrow, maybe I can also do a demo session, if that will help. But we'll transition and look at also risk management, a bit of the RESI metrics or something, so that you know what to include in the proposal. Yes, there was a question. There was a hand up. Yes, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Like the question is, how do we transfer the very same like Libro project to the Google Docs file, like the one we are working with this time around? You
Yeah, you
said
export.
we are supposed to include.
You export it. You export this thing. You can print this thing here, right? If you notice, I can preview this thing I'm creating here. And then when I preview this, I can export it. So I can export this to PDF if I want to. I mean, I would have to clean this up somehow because I'm just going to close this and kind of zoom out or something like that. In fact, what I'm going to have to do is, and this is a thing here. This thing I have, oh, it's now working. I can hide the finish date. I can hide the resources, hide column. I want create space here. I don't think I need the predecessors. I'll hide this column. Task name I need and stuff. And then I'm going to zoom out again so that this thing spans weeks or something like that, right? And then I'm going to go to file here, and then I'm going to preview this. You see this? This is what you do, right? So this piece of software has a feature. there's documentation, plenty of documentation on how to use this too. But once you create a timeline, like in Project Libre, like so, what you can do is you can print it, right? You can print it and export it to file. You can export to PDF like this. Just click on the PDF document here and then save. But probably want to preview it before, right? PDF. Take note of the place where you've saved it. I've saved it here. I'll open it up. Here we go. It's here, right? What can I do here? Well, I mean, from here, what I can do is I can say, come on, I can say I want to convert this LIS 2034 thing.pdf into sample project libre export.png. So I'm just going to convert it to PNG, right? If it's a PNG or if it's an image, if it's an image, this image, I can then export to Google Docs, right? What do I do with a PNG? I can copy it like this. And then I go to Google Docs, create a new document, and then I have my text here, yada, 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 and then I'm going to paste it here. And when I paste it here, I can do the usual things that we were taught in EDU 1020, is it? I can crop, right? I'll crop this so that I create enough space or something like that. So that this thing is aesthetically pleasing. Everybody likes beautiful things, I guess. So that it's aesthetically pleasing, like this, right? Like that. And then I would then work on I would work on scaling this so that it's more legible. In fact, I can do some of the things that you are taught in, maybe this is appendix A2, appendix A or something, Gantt chart, like this. And what I can do is I can use my EDU 1020, right? And say, well, I want to create a break section here, right? So that when I create a break section here, because this Gantt chart is supposed to be wider, it's supposed to be more legible, I can change the page orientation, is it? For this break section I've created. I want this to be landscape so that it's wider like this. And because it's wider, oh, we used to play wider when I was there. Because it's wider, I can extend it like so. And then it's more legible, right? And the other content goes, it goes here on top, like that. You understand this? So this is in your appendix section, like so. So exporting this is easy. In Project Libre, you just go to File, and then you say PDF, right? You understand this? I don't know. Are there any other questions? I missed that. Somebody, Edwin, was saying, sir, the slides available on the Moodle because the screen you're sharing is blank. Yes, this slide deck is available on the Moodle. Sir, your screen is blank, but I could see it on my end. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please, I'm going to be on the lookout. I'll ask the course reps if 7 hours is okay. If not, I'm going to tell them, and I'm telling you as well, that my availability is likely going to be between 14 and 16 hours because of a 17 hours class, unfortunately. So if you are okay with us having a virtual class on Tuesday in the morning, that will greatly help here. But if not, I can understand. We'll push this also. If we're unable to meet tomorrow, I will insist that we have class on Thursday or on Friday. No, not Thursday or Friday because there's a workshop I'm attending. So it's probably going to be the weekend or something. But I'm hoping that tomorrow will be fine. So on that note, here's the thing. The takeaway point here is already
Tomorrow morning is also okay, sir.
Yeah, but we must make decisions in a formal way, right? Where everybody contributes towards deciding, or the majority in this case, apparently in this part of the world, right? We don't want to disenfranchise certain people here. So we expect you to do a poll somewhere, and then you ask people, is the virtual interaction in the morning fine? Yeah. So what the smart people will be doing already is you'll be playing around with Project Libre as a team, putting together your timeline, so that very, very soon, before the end of the week, you put together in your document, you put something like this. Do you people understand this? This is 18 hours. Thank you very much, everybody. Again, I do apologize that we're having a virtual class here, but not that I would have died, but I didn't want collapsing here. The medication I'm taking was making me feel a bit sluggish.
Hi.
Good.
But
in fact, you
Yeah.
Tumezo tu,
They're
no.
saying that. Thank you and good.
Wait.